Very, very good. So, yeah, let's start. Um, Today, we are joined in a new episode of Digital Conversation with Mona ElSwah, a dear colleague of mine and a longtime friend who is very much digging in everything related to digital misinformation and content related to our region. So, this is Emna Mizuni, and I am joined by Muna today to talk about her work and a very, very new piece. So recently, Mona, or let's say Dr. Mona, has started working on a research on content moderation in the Maghreb region. And in this episode, we will learn more about content moderation, its importance, and its state in our Maghreb region. So, without further ado, I want to start asking you questions. I want to dig deep into the research that you did, and that is meant to be out by the time we air this episode. So, I'll start with one question, with the first question actually. If we could start by defining what's content moderation, why it is important, why this hive about content moderation and attacking platforms, attacking people, taking down content, um, and what is social media content moderation, generally speaking?
Yes, thank you so much, Amna. I'm happy to speak with you today. Again, we know each other since ages, and I'm glad we're speaking today about this important issue. So, content moderation in the simplest way possible would be is a way platforms choose to govern content, user generated content on their website, on their platforms in general, including social media platforms. The earliest way, if we're going to talk about moderation, was just manual moderation. Basically, if you think of Facebook, for example, Facebook when it started was a college website where students were, dating and knowing each other, and the moderation was basically manual. People reporting harmful content, and even later on it expanded to be, people actually hired to do this. But it's fine to moderate a couple of thousand users, but when you expand globally, you need to think of more concrete ways to do this. And then we start talking about we started joining the idea of automated content moderation started to be integrated in addition to manual content moderation. And this we needed automation in order to be able to manage huge content. But when you add those two elements, the human part and the automated part, there's so many errors that can happen. The human part errors can happen because if the person is not well trained, the person has biases, the person does not understand a certain language, you will see errors in which content is allowed to be kept and which content is allowed to be taken down. And if you're going to look at the automated content moderation, you will also have errors in relation to the bias in the data that train the model to make decisions about which content to be left and which content to be taken down. So you will find errors in both, and it gets worse with dialects and languages that are what we call low resource, the dialects that are especially in the majority world in the global south, like the Maghrebi Arabic dialects, that we're not talking about English where the majority of research is done, where these companies are mainly based, and where of course a lot of political and commercial interest is. But if you're going to talk about the Arab world or the Maghreb Arabic region specifically, you will find that there is less interest in these regions and therefore more errors, basically.
That's really true. And I think that's a line of work that we need, whether as digital citizenship or personally with you, Mona, and with the work that you're doing on different capacities. So we're very keen on understanding why you specialized in this. Maybe we take you back a little bit further to know what motivates you to study it. I mean, there are millions of Arabs and linguistics who are working in this. Why would you be very interested in this?
I'll go back to the idea when I was became interested in call moderation in general. I was, interested more in how there is a control on users from governments and from, other actors. But there is, back in the days in 2020 or maybe even before that, I started noticing that there are big issues with tech companies manipulating this region and under controlling the freedom of expression of this region. I'm talking about the Arab world in general, and in the global South even more broadly. So I became interested in this topic. Like, we need to study how they allow us to speak and which content they want to take down, and why. Where is the error? Because as someone who was interested in this, I wanted to learn myself. Where is this? Where is the error? What is wrong? Is it intentional, or is it not intentional? And I became very interested in this topic. And in 2019, Tunisian election was, the first time I was very interested in this topic. And then the Sheikh Jarrah events happened, and there was a huge, major interest from many researchers who studied the specific Arabic call moderation. I was one of them. And then I studied more and more how the algorithms work when it comes to call moderation. And then I started working with CDT in order to study this topic in the global South in many regions. What inspired me to work on the Maghrebi Arabic dialects is specifically that, yeah, we already have research. It's still minimal, but we do have some ideas and research about the other parts of the Arab world, especially when it comes to Mashriqi Arabic, Egyptian Arabic. Like, these languages are a bit studied because the bigger population, more politically interesting, like especially when it comes to Palestine. But the Maghrebi Arabic dialects in general are so understudied. And I believe this particular report is the first ever to study colon moderation in this region. And these are low resource languages. They are not, they are, if we're going to say that the Arabic language um, is under explored and understudied, the Maghrebi Arabic dialects are extremely understudied. So this is what inspired me to focus on this region rather than other countries in the Arab world.
Very, very inspiring, honestly, because it's never enough to say that we need more resources in this region. We're heavy users of platforms like Meta and TikTok and other platforms. We might be not as spendy and as other regions in those platforms in terms of ads generated, but we are still using and feeding with our data. So so when we say the Maghreb region, we talk about Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Mauritania. The Maghreb countries are very diverse,
Yep.
and we have a few similarities, like the background. Are you trying to add, while studying the Maghreb region, are you trying to add the component of the Amazigh background to the dialect, to the derja, or you're just trying to understand the Arabic derja and generally speaking?
So we focus on the Arabic itself, not the Amazigh language. We touched upon it a little bit, but we did not dig deeper on the Amazigh language specifically. We maybe touched upon like the impact we Amazigh language is a different language, and I think that future research should focus on such a specific language that is so rich and super interesting, and a lot of people speak about this language that I believe that if we're like, it's even more under researched than any language I've seen in the region. And I think if I have the time and energy in the future, I will study it. But for this particular one, we focus on Arabic Because I think like we did that because I'm a native Arabic speaker and it made my life easier, but also because it impacts more bigger population in the region. And I think this is why I wanted to study this and focus on this, because I want to cover different countries. And also I'm not I don't speak the language, unfortunately, but there are people who I came across who do work on Amazigh language, and I was like, so happy, and made me feel more confident that this region will be covered more properly in the future.
Very, very good. I mean, we will be supporting that for sure, even if we don't speak the language. But like you said, we find specialized people in Amazigh language. If you could tell us more about the CDT research on the content moderation in the Maghreb region, and we will be adding to the description of our podcast video the web page.
Of course. So we wanted to study different things. We want to study how the content moderation impacts users, and we wanted to study the content moderators who do the work of deciding and reviewing content on daily basis. And also, you wanted to explore the engineering side of it, like what is wrong with the models, basically. What can we do better? So when it comes to the users, we did what we call as focus group discussions that digital citizenship helped with as well. It's basically a gathering of users, frequent social media users, and content creators, influencers, and Instagrammers, basically. And they discussed a lot of how they became distrustful of social media in the region, in social media companies who are based, and especially those based in the US. Um, Also, they talked about how they creatively innovate tactics to overcome the content moderation repression. They basically what we call as algo speak, thinking of many ways. And that, if you remember, Amna, we heard super creative methods to trick the algorithm repeatedly. It's been like an amazing journey to learn that people think of ways to get away of what they want to write. So this is the first thing that we covered, the user part, and the second part, which is the content moderators part, which was the hardest and the most complicated, because content moderators all over the world, not just in this region, it's all over the world, they sign NDAs. NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. It's basically in their contract, they are not supposed to speak about their work to anyone. Funny part is that they learned later on that they are not even allowed to speak about their work to their friends or to their families. So they call themselves like IT agents or something. So it's hard to find them. And it's even harder to convince them to speak with me. Even though, like, we ensure anonymity, I did not include any identifiable information about their names or anything that could identify them. And I don't think that it was sensitive. Like, I didn't, ask them sensitive questions. It's more like, I wanted to know what is wrong. Why do we have content moderation errors in this region? So what I found is that with content moderators, that they are going through a very harsh work environment. They do have um, a lot of pressure to moderate traumatizing content on daily basis, in return for, like, average to low payments. And in addition to, yes, they do have psychological support at these companies in the region, but still not the best at all. So you do have this mix of bad environment that does not encourage people to stay in for too long. So you keep losing expertise every few months, and you have new hires, retrain them, and then the cycle will go on. They will leave, and you have to rehire. It's an ongoing process of people basically hating the job. But also, what I learned was really interesting, the idea that content moderators, they they and who are specialized in Arabic, they moderate content from any country basically. Like for example, a Tunisian would moderate content from Egypt, and an Egyptian will moderate content from Morocco. It's these dialectical differences in the languages are not appreciated much by the companies that hire moderators to do the job. And the assumption that all Arabs understand all dialects and contexts is, it's an forever a mistake that overgeneralization of what is an Arab and what is Arabic is a mistake that is leading to a lot of content moderation errors that we see, because moderators do not if in some instances they do their best, I guess, to review content but the best of their knowledge, but still there will be instances when they don't understand the cultures, when they don't understand the language. It's really sometimes very difficult for them to make the right decisions. So again, you can see why the errors happen. The last aspect will be on the tech company side or the engineer side, like why what is wrong with the models that are behind the automated column moderation, the algorithms basically. And what we found very interesting in this part as well, because you would see that, as I said earlier, Maghrebi Arabic dialects are low resource languages, which means that the data that is available to train the models is very limited compared to, let's say, English or French. The data available to train the models are way less compared to other languages. So what happens is that you will find that they will either translate Arabic to English to train the models, or you will find that they will have to get data from third-party companies that hire what we call as annotators. Annotators are the ones responsible of annotating data basically and categorizing data to whether it's hate speech or not, for example. So if the annotator are not doing a great job, the data you will have is wrong. They will have errors in it, and eventually you'll have errors in models. And the problem with annotators is that, again, an Egyptian will annotate data from Tunisia, for example. Again, they don't understand the context. They don't understand what is hate speech in Tunisia. It's very difficult for them to assess that. Additionally, we found that NLP is natural language processing. It's basically the engineers who train language models, basically at tech companies. What we found was that NLP teams at tech companies are not diverse enough. It's very rare to find an Arab in the NLP team, or maybe not just an Arab. Like the diversity lacks. It's a common practice in NLP teams. I understand that, but if we have enough diversity in NLP teams and the design and the people who actually engineer the models, you'll be able to have a better evaluation of the models. You will have to have better people in the room who basically tell you what's wrong, what is not wrong. If I remember speaking with an NLP scientist at one of the companies, and he was telling me basically that um, if you don't have someone in the room who can spot things, you will have errors basically. And I was asking specifically about, why so many content creators in the region complained about the comment Allahu Akbar being hidden on Instagram. And uh, the NLP researcher told me that because it might be one of the reasons that there is no one to highlight that. It's basically, the annotation of the data showed that this is no hate speech because it might be related to terrorist content. So there is a big issue with that. But the positive side of it is that um, Yes, Maghreb Arabic dialects are low resource, but there are amazing local researchers in the Maghreb region who are already doing great work, collecting amazing data sets, that I hope that tech companies can, consult and use their expertise in developing more accurate models, because I found amazing smart people working on this already, and the work already exists, the knowledge is there, but I think that we need to learn from them more and more.
Wow, one all of the questions that I prepared are gone. You responded to every single one of them.
Sorry.
Two, you touched something so close to my heart because, like you said, there are so many people who are talking about content moderation in our region, and I don't speak of the MENA region, generally speaking, but also the Maghreb countries, and people who are like with us being activists, organizations, communities, initiatives. We're trying really to push the conversation to be included and to have a more inclusive policy from those tech companies. And do you think that those tech companies, they really play a major role in the information production? um, and here it leads to disinformation and misinformation, and with such poor service in terms of content moderation, or not poor but very limited service, we see this aggravating a lot. um, what is the impact of that information production that is coming from the tech platforms, specifically social media platforms, in our daily lives and the big decisions taken in our countries, and even at small scale for small families, what would happen for them based on that?
So social media for me is like, especially for in the Arab world more broadly, it's more, especially like old people, like for example my mom would use, just tell me like Facebook, because she found it on the internet. Basically the internet is Facebook for her. It's basically the main source of information. This is not just my mother, like it's a lot of people have the same thing.
Mine
uh
too.
yes, exactly. It's very common. Social media for them is their main source of information. Like maybe our generation might, go to news websites and actually investigate things, but for them, it's different. And for so many people, not just older people, but for so many people, it is a main source of information. And what goes wrong with that if you're spreading specific information on these platforms altogether, especially during elections or like crises, basically, and in very heated political events, you will have a very polarized community, that could lead to, either you can actually see physical tension on the ground, or maybe emotional tension on people afraid or scared. And we saw it so many times. I'll give you an example of COVID vaccines, for example. A lot of vaccine misinformation is spread in the Arab world, because people believing that COVID vaccines are going to hurt them in many ways. Um, and a lot of people did not get the vaccine eventually, because of believing this misinformation, and leading to them getting sick and infecting others, because of believing such information. And the polarization that we found during the COVID-19 era was, I can't forget it. I will never forget it, because it is the easiest example you can give of the impact of misinformation on people. um, there are many things that we can't talk about. We can see now the Palestinian versus Israel situation, especially like how a lot of misinformation against Palestinians are spreading, impacting people, donations, for example, impacting the way people want to support even, um, Palestinians. Like you will see a lot the impact of misinformation, every day in your life. You just need to observe it more and more. I think like what tech companies are trying to fix it. It's hard to fix it in countries where there is less interest in them, basically. Um, the Arab world, by the way, is not the it's not the worst. We don't have the worst situation. There are countries where there's less and less interest in them, but it's very difficult to fix it. Even in the US, like they can't even fix it there. It's a human thing to create misinformation, and with social media is empowering bad actors basically to spread it. So we as users need to learn how to find misinformation, and how to find how to avoid this kind of hateful content. And also tech companies need to do lots more in fighting it, and especially in non-English contexts.
That's really true. I mean, one politician once said the propaganda was run mainly through newspaper and traditional media. One TV channel, usually the state channel, would spread information, the sole information production source, basically. And then we moved slowly to thousands of TV channels. And now, with the democratizing access to information, the other side would be the mass misinformation that we can observe in our MENA region and North Africa, Maghreb countries, as well as globally. Yeah, we might not be the worst. I mean, we saw how content moderation could lead to massacres, like in Myanmar. Um, I just want to go back to the research. And of course, you start a research with a hypothesis and you have a methodology and everything, but we want to really focus. You spoke a lot about how the content moderation is run and how it's limited in our region, the Maghreb region. But we want to know what are the findings that you found, the patterns that keep being repeated, either commonly between the countries you studied in this research, or that have similarities with other Middle Eastern countries.
I think, like, if you're gonna compare the what I found in the Maghreb region compared to the rest of the Arab world, you'll find that the creativity and the tactics, as I said, the algo speak is very it's really growing across the region in all dialects. It's really interesting to see, the way people use watermelon emoji, for example, to instead of the Palestinian flag. You will see a lot of algo speak, especially when it comes to Palestine, because people are worried. As I said, there is a huge distrust that is growing every day when it comes to social media from Arab users in general, because especially when it comes to Palestine, people are really worried that their content will not be kept online. So they try and find ways to avoid that. So you will find this specific finding very applicable to other countries in the region. You will also find that the harsh conditions of content moderation is again applicable all over the world. Content moderation is a job that is very, very tough because they are seeing stuff that we as users shouldn't see. This include, child abuse, women abuse, like so many traumatizing, even animal cruelty is a thing. Like the examples I heard is really bad. It's very traumatizing, and this job is traumatizing all over the world. Interesting for me to hear it for the first time from people in this region. Examples of collaborators speaking out we heard before was, coming from the US or Kenya, but saying, oh, we have the same conditions are everywhere. This job is one of the hardest jobs in the world, I must say. Traumatized, and I really hope that they are will find peace one day, because this job, even if they leave, it keeps having its impact on them probably for life, because the stuff they see is very hard to forget, I would say. I and countries in different in across the world.
I totally get your point. It's regardless of the pay, even if it's a high pay, sometimes when you see too much bad things from the bad side of the human being, you just are done. And I remember from a conversation with one of the actually one of the companies, the tech companies, they said like, I've seen people committing suicide live on Meta, on Facebook Live, and then I had to take down the content, and that haunted me forever. So they resigned basically. I don't remember the name of the person, but I remember this because it shows how hard and difficult it is to do content moderation. Um, so I'll take you a little bit out of this research, and we go back to you as a researcher. And we're always interested to know the person who we're inviting. So we wanna have a small piece of advice from you, young aspiring women academics. What would be?
That's a very interesting question. So I would say think out of the box, which seems very cliche, but it's real. Like, don't just try and, do the job, but actually think of what you can offer that no one else can. And I think this is something I try to do every research I start. Like, I want to do something that's not been done before, which is a challenging, but it pays off eventually. But also, like, if there's something I want to advise any researcher is to take care of themselves while, doing research. Research is very overwhelming. Even if you study, something that is not um, harsh or anything, but it's still like it's overwhelming and it can take your life away. So I would say take care of yourself. Take weekends off. This will actually make you more productive and more able to be objective in your writing and collecting data, because if you're really in the topic, if you're really something, your bias will hit and you will be part of the research, which take ourselves without our or lose situation for you. I think you will make mistakes that you will probably regret
Amen to
later on.
that. I totally agree. I think it applies to women academics, to women entrepreneurs. We spoke previously with one, to activists. Everybody has to really like take a step back and see the bigger picture. I mean, we're humans, we have biases, but we always try to avoid them, especially in a something very, very tricky like research. Biases would lead to, I mean, amplify maybe some issues, right? Could be. So, anyways, we're coming to the last part of our podcast episode today. And we want to know who is Mona. At CDT, you're a researcher, academic, Harvard University, Internet Institute. You are brilliant, but we want to know the personality of Mona. And so we prepared a few questions for that. It's becoming our tradition to ask, if you were an animal, you would be a lion, a cat, dog, bird, or a fish?
Oh, I would probably tend to be a cat. Less scary than a lion and less boring than a fish.
So, a cat, that means you're independent, affectionate, and playful.
Okay, that's
That's
good.
nice.
Okay.
The other question is, if you were a color, would you be red, blue, green, yellow, or purple?
I will say green. I like anything that is green. It gives me peace when I see it.
Yeah, it's not far from the what we have here. It's nature, it's growth, it's harmony, it's peace. You're right. I should add green to my favorite colors.
It's really
So, if
good.
you were an element, you would be fire, water, earth, air. That's not the astrological sign, but let's see.
Yes, I think it will be water. Everyone likes
Mm.
water. Everyone is scared of fire.
Yeah, I think that applies to your personality. Calm, peaceful, adaptable.
I like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, we're doing great. If you were a country, would you be France, Italy, China, Japan?
I love Japan. I think I will choose Japan because it's it's the country that everyone want to go to, and it's so different from anything that else that you've seen.
It's a different. It's another
It is
another
different.
planet.
It is
Yeah. So that's peaceful, respectful, and harmonious. I mean, Japanese people are so respectful.
it's
Never seen somebody like that.
true.
Um. So yeah, you're winning. You're winning with us today.
See, I think peaceful is a common factor. I like peaceful. It's
Yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah. I see that a lot in you. If you were a season, would you be spring, summer, autumn, or winter?
I like winter. I
Yeah.
would definitely be winter.
It's so harmonious. It's like calm, introspection, rebirth. That's so much you.
Okay,
As
that's
a
good.
person who knows you, I say everything we covered here is so authentic and right. And wow. So thank you so much for allowing us this time, sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. We will be airing this episode in and basically the time that the research will be out. So we will include it in the description of the episode. We will also wanna send our warmest regards to you and your team for doing this. As Tunisians, as people of the Maghreb countries, we really know the importance of this, and we see actually the impact of researches and papers written that would basically draw the attention of the tech platforms and make them meet with us and correct issues and fix problems and all of that. So, from deep of my heart, thank you so much, Mona, for the work you're doing and for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Amna. Again, like your support for this project has been endless, and we couldn't have done it without your support and digital citizenship supports. So thank you so much for working with us on this one too. And again, thank you so much for speaking with me today. It's been fun, and I'm glad that I'm peaceful today.
Good for us. Good for us.
Thank you so much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, tuners to our podcast, thank you so much for tuning with us today to speak in digital conversation with Mona ElSwah. You will find it in our YouTube channel. It will be shared in our social media channels as well. And we hope to receive comments from you that we would share with Mona. And see you in another episode. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Amna.